all to the International Conference of Theoretical Linguistics and Languages of the Caucasus. This is an event organized by the European Union, and it is organized by Bilgi University Department of English Language and Literature, Laz Enstitu, and Istanbul Caucasian Culture Association in collaboration and academic support of the faculty members of the Linguistics Department at Boğaziçi University.
I heartily welcome you to our conference at our university. This is the first ever international conference our department is hosting, and I am personally very excited about it. And I have a few thank yous to extend to people who contributed, supported, and collaborated with our colleagues in the department in this organization. Now I leave it to Professor Balkız Öztürk, one of the members of our organizing committee.
This is the first first of the two consecutive events we're gonna have within these 3 days. So now I would like to turn the floor to Eylem Bostancı. She is the project coordinator of the network of Laz and Circassian civil societies project. So Eylem Hanım, please. Thank you.
Dear guests, most distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen, it's my highest honor to welcome you all here in our beautiful city, Istanbul. This event has been organized within the scope of the Laz-Çerkes Civil Society Network, which has been funded by the European Union. This is a 3-year project which has started in July 2020 with the partnership of the Laz Enstitu and the Istanbul Caucasian Culture Association. There are 2 overall objectives of the project. 1, 2 Caucasian languages, namely Laz and Circassian, to be out of the UNESCO's list of endangered languages. And 2, to ensure participation, representation, and inclusion of the linguistic minority groups in promotion of fundamental linguistic and cultural rights, and contribute towards the gain of status of the mother tongues in Turkey. Special thanks to our partner, İstanbul Bilgi Üniversitesi Department of English Language and Literature, which has provided us this venue, and finally, all the guests here. Thank you.
So I have some typological results, some phonological results, and I have made some comparisons to my access to some verbal roots. And I will also have a perspective discussion. And affixes tend, unlike typics, to exclusively attach to its associated word class. For example, nominal affixes only attach to nouns, for example. And I have compiled a database of 10,550 nominal and verbal affixes from 55 languages, from the 5 language families spoken in Caucasus. Most of those are Nahdo-Estonian, as you might guess. Thank you for listening.
I will talk about evidentiality in Karaçay-Balkar and Turkish with some implications for the structure. And as illustrated in the first example for Tarihlerinde, so there are some languages in which all these information sources are marked with distinct morphological markers. So a brief summary, gun is ambiguous between perfect and evidentiality when it's attached to a verbal predicate. Gun encodes existential perfect. In certain contexts, evidentiality reading is not possible. And gun, in contrast to Turkish, cannot attach to nominal predicates and participles.
We're going to be presenting a puzzle today. What we did is that we investigate the case system of Pazar Laz, and we specifically focus on the ergativity in this language, which is a lot of fun. So let's take a look at the overview of the case system in Laz. On the surface, Laz differentiates external arguments and the internal arguments rather than making a reference to the transitivity for case markings. They propose that anergatives are actually in the active ergative systems are actually concealed transitives. Mary will take over from here.
Alright, so we will discuss three types of evidence against analyzing the ergative case in Laz as a dependent case, starting with the causativization patterns. So essentially, maybe it's not clear what BP means in this case. We essentially take it to be, following these references here, we take it to be the complement of whatever head brings in the external argument, right? So it's typically assumed to be the voice head, so we're going to assume that. And so whatever is in the complement of the voice head, if you have two empties there, the data will be.
But although there are many studies out there in the literature where these facts have been reported and emphasized, none of the previous studies has ever looked into the variety of laws as spoken by these younger generation speakers. A verb lexically specifies that its object undergoes some sort of change in shape or constituency. Then those verbs select for and if not, if we don't see any kind of change in shape or constituency, then those verbs select for We'll focus on one particular change that is currently taking place in heritage laws.
My talk has this title, it's a very bombastic title, The Architecture of Argument Introducing Categories in Georgian, but actually I would just talk about a very little morpheme that is that you will see is very polyfunctional in Georgian and in other South Caucasian languages. As regards the locative version that is also expressed by Shinji says it's not a type of version, but it's another semantic category that he calls situation. Okay, they express information about number of arguments in a sentence, and they cannot concatenate.
So here are a couple more assumptions, or rather the proposal spelled out in more detail. So a narrowly focused constituent raises to the specifier of a dedicated XP. The head of that same phrase attracts the raised verb. As you can see, we're using slightly different constraints, but basically we're deriving the very same picture. So we have our alignment of the head with the left edge, alignment of H with P with the left edge, and alignment of focus with the left edge. And the only candidate that does not violate any of these constraints is the attested one. So we have our focus aligned with the left edge, and it's also prosodic with pronoun.
So the question that we might ask is the following: how do speakers know which antecedent a pronoun can refer to? With respect to constraint, an early influential theory is the binding theory that suggests two principles. Licensing of reflexivity is done in two ways in Armenian. Either semantics, when we do by bundling, we add morpheme to the verb and making it reflexive. But when we add this verb infix to the verb, we get the reflexive interpretation.
My presentation is going to start with the introduction, which reviews the basic notions of the distributed morphology, and the section also includes the detailed description of the fission operation. She doesn't go into the particulars of like match the features at the first step and the second step, like Halle 1987. Mingurlian is one causative marking, because as you look at the iterative causatives in these two languages,
is in fact what I will call the focus, or the focused constituent, and actually it includes some focused phrase and a copula. We also have some other type of pseudocleft, and this is a kind of this is a kind of standard pseudocleft. But it's interesting that in West Caucasian languages,
this example, on the other hand, illustrates the interpretation where there has to be a football club. There is other kind of associatives in Georgian, which stands for the set of entities that are associated with the object in singular, but excluding the object itself. To sum up, we identified several special uses of plurals in Georgian, namely exaggerative, intensificative, approximative, and associative, we did not find anti-associatives and evasive plurals in Georgian.
And address the following issues. So I will try to talk about the origin of the rule of truncation, then the prosodic contour characteristic to them, and we'll try to compare to Russian truncated vocatives. So because it was contact language, and there is a possibility that there is a kind of replication from recording. So here it's in on the picture, on the figure, it's in rose color. I will look at that a bit later. I also looked through some main prosodic patterns of Georgian.